Rush is in the gun. 3 receivers. Rush is back. Here comes the rush. He fires, and it's intercepted. It's intercepted. Running with the football is Gardner Johnson. He's at the 30, the 20, the 10. Touchdown! Eagles on a pick 6.
Well, they're squatting. Gardner Johnson comes down Merrill from his safety spot, and he watches Cooper Rush with that football. He sees exactly where he wants to go. He steps in front, and he takes it back the distance to the house.
Chauncey Gardner Johnson paid a lot of money in fines this week, but he got some pleasure out of that.
Hey, y'all. Today, of course, it's Matt Rogers on the Honorable Mention podcast, which is a Philly sports podcast. Frequent guest on the show and friend, OJ Spivey from the Philadelphia Tribune is our guest today. Like I said off air to him, I was going to ask him this question anyways, and then I went and read his piece on it. So the hot topic of the week, of course, is should Nick Sirianni and the Eagles have allowed Saquon Barkley to chase the rushing title or not? And OJ, go ahead and take it away.
Well, I wrote in this weekend's Tribune, my weekly column, of course, which you can go right on phillytrip.com. You know, it was the discord all week long, up until they took him out of the game on Sunday, where he surpassed 2,000 yards, became the 9th player to do so, of course, ended up with 205 yards. And the funny thing, I'm going to tell you just a quick story about that, because in the press box, we weren't sure whether he was going to get the record or not, because Dallas did a good job of stopping him early on. Mm-hmm. And after halftime, he still needed over 100 yards to get the record. So once, you know, a lot of moving pieces were going on. Kenny Pickett got hurt, got banged up. Tanner McKee came in, threw a couple touchdown passes. And it just seemed like after that point, they said, okay, I even posted, I said, I think they're going to try to get him 2,000 yards. And it looks like they were going for it, because I kept following play after play. And it was so funny because, of course, there's no cheering in the press box, but I called myself. I had number one. I had the live stats up on my iPad, and then I also had the calculator on my phone. So I'm doing the quick math, and I'm saying, okay, it was 101 yards, and it's 67 yards, and it's 47 yards, and then I think it was maybe 22 yards or something of that nature, and then of course he broke the big run. And we're trying to say, okay, does he have it? Because where I usually sit, I'm next to the timekeepers. And they were even asking, you know, because they're always engaged in the game too, because obviously they have to keep the time, right? So it's probably about a staff of 3 or 4 people. And I just was overhearing, it's like, okay, does he got it? Does he have it? It's like, oh yeah, I think he got it. And then sure enough, you know, there wasn't applause or anything. Of course, we can't do that, but you know, everybody's like, oh yeah, he really got it. And that's when we knew he would take him out. He was at 31 carries. To make a long story short, after all the discourse this week, and I knew once they took Saquon out of the game on Sunday that we weren't going to see him until the playoffs, right? And everybody's like, okay, oh, you got to go for the record. You're only 101 yards away. You got to go for it, right? But my only thing is, first of all, what I tried to put in the column is, Eagles have to win 3 games to get to the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
they don't have the luxury that the
Detroit
Lions
Sunday night
or the Minnesota Vikings have. Whoever comes out and win that number 1 seed, you know.
Yep.
I'm all for it. If they had the bye or they had the number 1 seed, I'll say, you know what, go for it. You know, even if everybody's banged up, I should say, you know, you have an extra week, you can recover. But they have to win 3 games, you know, assuming it's the Commanders or the Packers, and then whoever else might be a South team or the other NFC North team that comes out in the next round, the divisional round. And then more than likely you'll have to go to Detroit or Minnesota. And then you look at Saquon Barkley's carries. It's not a lot, but if you look over his overall touches, he's almost at 400 touches.
Yeah.
And what are these games going to be like? As far as winning those 3 games, and the offense is going to be centered around Saquon Barkley. So I looked at it in that aspect first and foremost. And number 2, as I tried to explain when I posted on my social medias, they brought him here. He signed with the Eagles to win a Super Bowl, not to get Eric Dickerson's record. So
it would have been nice if it could have happened along the way, but it's not. It's not the main.
And I'm going to give you a little bit of tidbit that people aren't really talking about, where it could have already happened in the Dallas game, but we'll save that because I know you're going to talk about the opponents in just a moment. So there's a number of ways this could have already happened.
Yeah.
So, and another thing too that I wanted to focus on is everybody's minimizing the fact that he's part of the 2000 club.
Yeah,
that's a monumental
9 guys.
Right, that's a monumental incandescent feat in of itself.
It's incredible.
He's part of that club. That is an exclusive VIP club, which now only 9 guys are a part of, and Barkley is that. And then what I had a problem with is people are threatening the Eagles now. It's like, okay, because you did not go after the record, or because you're not going to seek the record, well, you better win the Super Bowl.
Or what?
When did those, Super Bowl or bust? So when did those expectations change? I thought that was the goal.
I thought that was the plan. Right. I thought we were always going to be highly disappointed and vocally, loudly disappointed if they didn't win this damn Super Bowl. So especially after what they put out here now.
Exactly. I mean, in that sense, Barkley could run for 2,500 yards. And if they don't reach the Super Bowl, then okay, we didn't reach the bowl, but we got that record.
Yeah,
which could be broken in another couple of years, because we're going to an 18-game schedule. Yep. So that gives another running back an even extra game to get it.
I largely agree with your larger point, OJ. I just want, for the people who people have talked a lot about the number of games, and I think that's it's a relevant point to discuss when you're talking about records.
I agree.
But when you say games, you also have to take into account carries. We talked about Saquon, the amount of total touches on his body. Eric Dickerson, that year that he broke that rushing record, he had 379. So that's 34 more carries than Saquon has in one game less, or the same number of games, in fact. So 34 more carries. So would you not say Saquon could get 3.2 yards a carry and break that? I just, for all the talk of the number of games, to minimize what he's done, and that says a lot for health. That diminishes the effort that people put into making sure that they're ready to go, the toughness to continue to go with nicks and stuff that we don't talk about. Even people don't even talk about to great reporters like yourself, OJ. I mean, the NFL season is grueling. And he came into this season, people try to tag him as an injury-riddled player. No, he's getting whacked because he's the only person on the Giants worth a damn.
Right. Well, again, it's so many moving parts with this. And when I talked about the 3 games, this factors in everybody. It's not just Saquon. It's the offensive line. Man, when we raced down to the tunnel, to the locker room and everything, because, a lot of us try to get footage, or we try to see what's going on as the players are coming in from the field, right?
Mm-hmm.
So even on Sunday against Dallas, I'm seeing some of those guys walk towards the locker room, man. And the person that stood out to me was A.J. Brown. And he's always upbeat and everything, but I mean, what did he have? Like maybe 6 catches for 36 yards, I believe, but he did have a touchdown and everything. I mean, he looked like he just wrestled a bear. Where he's walking off the field. And then you see these linemen, man. You see Landon Dickerson. You see Jordan Mailata. You see Cam Jurgens. I know they were most of them were all for going for the record and all, but I mean, it's really a grind. They haven't had a week off since week 5. So you presume that, okay, let's say they go through the 3 games, they win, they get to the Super Bowl. That'll be the 17th week in a row that they've played football. I mean, usually
since
the
the week 5
is,
bye. Yeah, usually get it later. Yeah.
And whenever everybody was complaining about, the early bye and everything, well, they needed it at the time, but now they need another one.
And this is the week. This is the bye when you got nothing. You can only hurt yourself, really. And literally, you can't. The Eagles can't even they lost the game, they couldn't drop to the number 3. They won't drop to the number 3. So you could literally only go out there and get your players hurt. That's why I think your perspective, because the thing is a lot of folks, and to kind of just tie this whole discussion up in a bow, I think your column, which I highly recommend for people, you're not going to send Saquon out there with backup guard, backup center, Jahan Dotson at the one.
Made that claim is, oh yeah, they'll be all right. They'll be all right with, Fred Johnson and, Jack Driscoll and, all those, he'll be all right. He'll get the yards. I mean, he may get the yards, but again, at what cost, not only to him, but to others.
That's
and for
ridiculous.
me, some people are making a claim that, oh yeah, he's scared, everything like that.
Scared?
It's not about being scared. It's more about the rest than the injury itself.
Oh man.
The potential injury. It's more about, you got to think about the rest. And some people are already having reservations and, whether they're going to win or not. So, I mean, you got to put your best foot forward. And again, the expectations to win is whether you get the record or not. People even ask me, okay, why can't you go after both? Well, here's why. I just laid out the reasons why. Other than just the simple fact that, okay, that he wasn't brought here to overtake Eric Dickerson. He was brought here to bring this team another Super Bowl trophy. That's the stricter thing to say, but there's so many moving parts as far as how and why they should rest. Because again, my first thing is the 3 games. How many carries is he going to get in these 3 games?
Yeah, you got to say, you got to think about it in terms of touches. You got to say he's going to get 30 touches.
And overall, yes, he has almost 400 touches for the season.
So 17, he's getting what, somewhere.
So we look up his, if we were able to look up his
near 30 touches,
his average touches per game. Okay, you have to factor that in.
That's 29 touches. That's something like 20. Yeah.
So 29 touches, you times that by 3, that's almost 90 touches in 3 games.
Mm-hmm.
Assuming that they win all 3 games, they get to the Super Bowl, and then, okay, Super Bowl, you have 2 weeks.
500 touches on your body walking into Super Bowl week.
You can give him
450.
You can give him 40 touches in the Super Bowl if it takes that much, but you have that extra week off, and that's what you're working towards. I mean, he has to be that workhorse. We can't, unless teams try to defend them so much to where you're going to see one-on-ones. It would be a good thing actually, but you'll see one-on-ones on the ends with AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, which was their bread and butter when they pass the football. That may work out where he has less touches, but again, I don't think everybody's just thinking rationally as far as what's this going to take, what it's going to take come playoff time, because you're going to need him to, be fresh enough to have what we assume is almost 90 touches within these next three games.
And I guess there's always more of this to unravel. As you talk about, there's always layers to these onions with these Eagles fans discussions. Let's say Nick made the opposite choice. Everybody's all excited. We get to Sunday. AJ Brown, Devontae roll their ankles, mess themselves up. They missed divisional round weekend, which or wild card weekend, which is next weekend. So Jahan Doxson's at the number one wide receiver, or Saquon's out because he made that decision. People would be calling for Nick's job in alternate reality.
They will, yeah. They say they will. Say, oh, you got to try. They say they will. I mean, people are already, despite Nick's record, what is he, 47-20, I believe, as a head coach with the Philadelphia Eagles. And he's still on thin ice with a lot of fans. I mean, this clock management, or, he goes for it on a 4th and short and doesn't make it, all those things. And I put in one of my other columns that people treat Nick Sirianni, it's pretty much, he behaves the same way as the people who want him fired.
But this is Spider-Man meme.
Attitude, right? The same attitude, the same persona, like you're pointing in each other's direction. That's why they don't like him, because they look in the mirror and they see themselves in Nick Sirianni. Philadelphia Eagles fans, tell me that I'm wrong.
and just knee jerk and kind of dopey, and it's
It's really why I want to see the collision course with Detroit. I really want to see that. I know we'll talk about that later, but the whole contrast, or the parallel, I should say, with Nick Sirianni and Dan Campbell.
Absolutely. Well, let's get to the rest of the league. The Saquon discussion was great. We'll be right back for a quick commercial break, and then we'll get into a whole bunch of stuff that will also involve the Eagles, who will be on their march to the Super Bowl in New Orleans for Kendrick concert and all that good stuff. So we'll be right back. All right, we're back after the break. The Eagles will play either the Green Bay Packers or the Washington Commanders on Wild Card Weekend at the Link. That can only happen if the pitiful Cowboys drop the Commanders to the 7th seed by beating them in Jerry World. And the Packers beating the Bears in Green Bay also has to happen. What chance do you give the Cowboys of making the Commanders the Eagles Wild Card Weekend guess?
I mean, not much. I mean, we saw Dallas last week. They had 1 foot in Mexico. Right?
Was it 2 feet in Mexico? Because was it after Tanner McKee threw back to back? One guy called back. Like, oh, okay, we'll just go to the same. Not even switch the flip in the play. Just I'm gonna do it again. I think that's 2 feet in Mexico. To your point, sir.
Yeah, and poor Micah Parsons, right? You had Jordan Mailata calling him out. He was mic'd up. I forget what he said. Like, oh yeah, come on, Micah. They're done. Let's the Washington Commanders, and I'm not sure exactly what the scenarios. Let's the Commanders say, okay, we want to try to pick our opponent, but they really can't because Green Bay controls the narrative at this point. All right.
So, well, if Green Bay can't jump Washington if they finish with the same record, because the Commanders own a better conference record. So I guess, so if they play for the tie, or if they lose and Green Bay wins, then Green Bay jumps them. So they would be picking to play Philly instead of the Rams
as it stands now, even if both teams win as it stands now, Green Bay would come to Philly unless they lose and Washington wins, I believe. So
yes,
in essence, Green Bay can pick their opponent. So they could either go to what I want to say, they can either go to Philadelphia, or would it be, what am I thinking? Not the north, not the south.
It could be
where they would go to
so
LA.
the bracket, so they could go to LA. They could either go to, you're pretty much, well, LA, Tampa. I think Tampa could potentially beat out the Rams.
Potentially, I believe so. Yeah. So, but anyway, I can't foresee Dallas beating Washington. So
no,
they're just gonna hold serve, and I'm sure they'll scoreboard watch, so to speak, if they're playing around us. If they're both playing at 1:00, I believe they'll scoreboard watch, and if things are in hand, Washington may pull some of their starters too, and just say, let's get ready to go to LA, right? So I don't see Dallas putting up much of a fight, if at all.
So if it is the Commanders, what do you think of that matchup in Philadelphia?
Yeah, I think it'll be an intriguing matchup, but then again, what you're looking at here is a tale of two games. We're looking at what happened in Landover a few weeks ago. The Commanders' run defense, when both Jalen and Saquon was in there, and even a series afterwards, because Washington didn't make the adjustment.
It was pitiful.
Saquon could have broken Eric Dickerson's record last week had Jalen Hurts not gotten hurt.
Absolutely, because the back
That's the way
end,
it was going.
Mm-hmm. Because he had 100. He had 100 yards by the end of the first quarter, I want to say.
Exactly. Well over 100 yards after the first quarter, and there was nothing that we were watching at the time that would make us believe that they were going to stop the run. The Commanders don't have a good run defense, and I saw that again on the Sunday night game against Atlanta, because Bijan Robinson was able to run, on them as well. So
at will.
Yeah, and to me, if they do play the Commanders, it's all the more reason again for my thoughts of resting, because you
need safe, fresh.
You want Barkley to run right through them like a laxative, man. So it would be ideal, but the problem is they had to figure out a way to keep Jayden Daniels in the pocket, and I was very disappointed with the defense. I mean, I know they had, C.J. Gardner-Johnson was out, but I would like to think they would have some type of spy or somebody that can keep an eye on Jayden Daniels, because he's still a good quarterback throwing the football. I won't take that anyway, but he's that much more dangerous when he can move around and he can buy himself some time, and you can't just give him free reign of beating the coverage and running for 15, 20 yards for a first down and a third and long.
A lot of good runs on third and long. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, it killed them. So I'm sure Fangio will have something conjured up to try to counteract that and try to keep him in the pocket as much as possible. But the Eagles coming in fresh, I don't think Washington can stop Philadelphia defensively. I mean, they can stop Philadelphia's offense. So
yes, that's right.
I give them an advantage. It's just a matter to me of how they can contain Jayden Daniels.
I was at the game in Brazil, the season opener with with the Packers against the Eagles. Thought they matched up pretty well against the Eagles. I think the Eagles could have beaten them that night. They could have beaten them by more if not for the sloppy turnovers. Jalen kind of hanging the ball. I think Jalen made some awesome throws in that game and some touchdowns. It was fantastic. But there were a couple of, throws that he would take back. They could have beaten them by more, but it was, more decisive than the score would say. Great game. I think that they match up a lot better. I think the Packers match up much better against the Eagles than the Commanders do. You agree with that?
I think it's fairly close. But actually, I think the Commanders are a better matchup just because of the familiarity with the division. I give Jayden Daniels a bit of an edge over Jordan Love, but I do think they're a little, neck and neck. But Jayden Daniels, he made the Pro Bowl, right? So the Packers may have a little better defense, but again, the Eagles beat both these teams.
Yeah, almost beat them with one of them with their backup quarterback.
Yeah, exactly. And I know Jayden Daniels was hurt in the game at the Link. He had some. I think he had a rib injury similar to what Kenny Pickett had, maybe not as severe, but he couldn't move around like he could in the second game when he was a lot healthier. I think Jordan Love is good. I don't think he will be able to. He's not, quote unquote, as mobile as Jayden Daniels. I think the Packers have a little more weapons, especially at wide receiver. You have Reed and you have a number of guys, but they have a lot of depth at wide receiver. And
if Watson can ever stay on the field, he's a matchup. He's a matchup problem.
So you have Reed, you have Watson, and of course you have Josh
Dobbs
Jacobs.
Is coming on with that big old,
Dobbs as well, right?
That big old helmet thing he got going on.
I wish the Eagles had that kind of depth. So they have about 4 or 5 guys that could catch the football and do some damage. And of course, you got Josh Jacobs at running back, has over 1,100 yards rather. So they have a lot of power offensively, defensively. I think both them and the Commanders are similar. You got a couple playmakers on defense, but of course Alexander is out now. That bodes well for the Eagles passing game. So I just think it's just a matter of the Eagles being sharp offensively, not missing a beat, and how much is Saquon Barkley going to dominate, because I don't foresee either defense having a formula to stop them.
Yeah, I agree with that. If the Lions were to lose on Sunday night in the regular season finale to the Vikings, could they make a run on the road to the Super Bowl?
I think so, because they have a tremendous defense. Their defense is almost as good as the Eagles' defense. They're pretty stingy. They're right up there. I believe they're top 5 in fewest points surrendered overall for the season. Brian Flores has done a masterful job with that defense. He should be up for a head coaching job once again. That's how well Brian Flores has that defense humming, right? But then you go offensively. Nobody wants to give Sam Darnold credit, but here he is on the brink of being the number 1 seed. Take it over for McCarthy, who of course got hurt in the preseason. And, we kind of say, okay, can Darnold keep this up? And he's not mistake free. I mean, he will give up the football, which I think will bode well for the Eagles. But, also as long as you have a Justin Jefferson to throw to, I mean, he makes any quarterback look good.
Yeah, he does.
So it'll be interesting to see that matchup. I know the past couple of years, the Eagles have been able to contain Justin Jefferson for the most part. But I do think the Eagles will be. I think Minnesota will be a better matchup for the Eagles than maybe Detroit. Not to say
Okay.
that the Eagles can't beat both teams, but I think Minnesota gives you uh, just on the defensive side. I think they will present more problems and really make the Eagles work for everything
Absolutely.
that they do,
I agree with
as
that
opposed
100%.
to Detroit, who's really banged up on defense and they give up a lot of points. That's my one
I,
thing about Detroit where I think they can be had. Um, you can score on them, and if you can make Jared Goff, I
one or
really
two
think
turnovers.
I think if Jared
That's
Goff
all you
makes,
need.
he's been able to get away with it all season long, and kudos to him because he's been able to persevere. But I do believe if he's gives the ball away to the Eagles, that's not something that Detroit will be able to overcome.
No. No. Yeah, I think Darnold and the Vikings are gonna light the Lions up. I think the Darnold's about to throw for 350 plus. I mean, Addison's coming on, Naylor's starting to come on. We know what Aaron Jones has been for
That
years
could
out of the
easily be
backfield.
Sunday night. That could easily be a 38-35 game.
Absolutely. And it's carries such implications. You got the Lions and all the craziness they like to do.
Yeah,
It's gonna
Lions got him the
be
first time, but still, it could be.
different
Um,
team.
yeah,
Darnold's throwing that thing with conviction. If you had if you're listening to this before that game,
yeah,
folks,
it's incredible. Yeah,
take a look at what I know you folks here. Sam Darnold, he like kind of like a Brock Purdy. I don't know.
a
Sam Darnold,
journey. Just because
yeah,
he's a journeyman at this point, so
yeah,
that's why
yeah.
nobody wants to give him credit, and it's hard because we're trying to get out of our minds the Sam Darnold that we're used to seeing or the Sam Darnold of
San
old.
Francisco,
But
yeah.
again, he's not mistake free. But like you said, like we said, they're on the brink of securing the number one seed.
Could you see them making a run all the way to the NFC Championship to be to play the Eagles? Because that's where they would have. I think they would.
Yes, because of how they play defense.
Yeah, I
Just like
agree.
the Eagles, their defense, I don't like using cliches or what have you, but their defense travels.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you think the Vikings are going to beat the Lions on the Sunday night?
I'm not saying that necessarily because where's the game? Is it in Detroit?
It is in Detroit, I believe.
Yeah, I still think Detroit holds serve. They find a way to win just simply because they're at home.
The game is in Detroit.
Yeah, I
NBC
give.
Universo Tele Exitos.
No, I still give Detroit the edge. Like I said, it could be a 38-35 game, but I still give Detroit the edge because I do think they're determined to keep that number one seed. Because if they don't get the number one seed and end up being the fifth, I don't think they're going to make it to the NFC Championship game.
They're
But if
already
Minnesota
so banged
secure,
up. That extra game, they need that extra game more than
yeah,
anybody.
they do, and I think that's partly why they'll win. But if Minnesota secures that number one, if even if Minnesota doesn't secure the number one seed, I think they can still make it to the championship game.
We'll be right back after another quick commercial break. All right, OJs, we're back. So I gotta say, I'm not buying either potential NFC South champion making any noise at all in the playoffs. Do you see a path for either the Bucks or the Atlanta Falcons? It's gonna be the Bucks, and I just don't see them really going very far.
Well, let me start with Atlanta first. I think you saw the issue with the Falcons. Besides, Raheem Morris's time management, uh, fiasco. I just think where Atlanta went wrong, they should have went to Michael Penix a lot sooner. Probably, I would say 3 weeks sooner, because you saw against the Commanders, even though they went to overtime, and they were leading for a good amount of that game, you saw their timing was off. The timing is just not there. And for just to be his second game ever starting, I think they did him a disservice. They just held on to Kirk Cousins for way too long. I mean, I
Yeah,
understand, he's making a ton of money and everything. And listen, God bless him and his agent and everything. I wish I had,
yeah,
was in the
he's
industry where
blessed.
I could have an agent to make that type of money, but
He's
they just held
blessed.
on to Kirk Cousins way too long. And I think that just makes things difficult for Michael Penix because there's no way at this point in the season that you can get that timing down. Like you saw the overthrows, you saw where the receivers, the timing was just off as far as just, running down the throws and everything. And, had they hit maybe even one or two of those deep shots, and Penix has a tremendous arm, by the way.
Yes,
I
he
mean,
does.
he got an arm like Warren Moon, only like left-handed, right? Or like Michael Vick, like he basically has a Vick arm, right?
Yeah, just
So
a quick flick, let it go with the left
exactly,
hand too.
and it damn near looks effortless.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I just think that it's maybe too little, too late for Atlanta, but I do think with a full training camp with Michael Penix at the helm, I think they can be good for a long time and maybe secure that NFC South for a couple years to come at least. With Tampa Bay, they're probably the last team I want to see
really.
against the Eagles because they're just a pain in the ass, man.
Yeah,
Baker Mayfield's a pain in the ass for one because the way this guy gets off of football, and I know he has Mike Evans, future Hall of Famer, and
and
everything,
Godwin.
but I mean,
Yeah,
you can't. You need a
he's
wooden
good.
stake.
He's a good quarterback.
You need a wooden stake and a mallet to kind of neutralize Baker Mayfield because he keeps
Yes.
coming. You can
Mm-hmm.
sack him 5 or 6 times in a game, and he'll just keep coming, man. And then with Tabo, I don't want to deal with that defense. I know the Eagles will, again, all the more reason why the Eagles should have a full roster. We saw what happened last year, and I don't want to just touch on last year because the NFL
Absolutely.
is
Different
always season to
team and all
season,
that. Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
But I don't want no parts of Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
Because like I said, just overall between Mayfield and the Tybo's defense, they just a pain in the ass.
Yeah. I guess. Yeah.
And
That Baker magic.
they could beat you up physically for a game, and then you're like, oh man, you gotta waltz into the NFC Championship game or something like that. So
Absolutely.
limp into the NFC Championship game or so.
There's been a lot of talk about Jalen Hurts still not practicing. I kind of see that as a good thing. It's kind of irrelevant to me when I know that they're not even sure we're gonna how much a Kenny Pickett we may see. So how much Jalen's practicing right now is pretty irrelevant to me. Is 3 weeks too much rest? I mean, is that how do you see this?
No, it's just circumstance. I mean, the concussion was unfortunate, of course. Um, well, number one, you're going to see Tanner McKee and Ian Book on Sunday against the Giants. That's who you're going to see. You're not going to Kenny Pickett's probably not even going to dress, and nor should he dress. You just want to see plenty of Tanner McKee for maybe 3 quarters, and then Ian Book to kind of, mop up the rest of the game, and let's say, hand it off to Will Shipley if he's back, or gosh, I forget who else they have on the roster.
Tryon Davis
Right,
Price is probably
exactly.
who we
So
will
yeah,
see.
so hand it off to either of those two guys and just run out the fourth quarter, no matter what the score is. So
And the Giants
um,
can hurt themselves. I mean, it's are we sure that we
well,
want
what
the
I keep
weirdly do we
hearing,
want the Birds to win this game? Because the
what
Giants
I
can slip
what I keep
themselves. One of my little factoids, they could slip themselves down to the 9th pick.
what I keep hearing coming out of New York is they're going to look for a bridge at quarterback and hold out for Arch Manning. That's what I keep hearing. I know that how risky that is or whatever, but you can kind of see it going that way because if they were really trying to tank, they wouldn't have won last week.
Somebody, yeah, they do need somebody to restore order. I don't know.
Well, what order are you restoring? You may or may not have the general manager and the head coach, but there's also a chance that both of them return for next year. I don't know why. Well, maybe you are if you're going to, get a bridge for at
Neighbors to try
quarterback.
to find out how good Neighbors is in year 2, 3,
It's not
4
even about
before you gotta just
that. I mean, they could bring in hell, they could bring in Kirk Cousins and just have him be a bridge for a year.
Mm.
If it goes that way. Because what I'm hearing is they may not want either Shador Sanders or Cam Ward. But you also have to factor in too, the Giants have never had a black franchise quarterback.
I look, I wasn't even going to say it, but
Well, I'm saying it. So, and then you have the Manning family. So, if you put the pieces to the puzzle here, it may not be hard to figure out. But what I keep hearing is that the Giants aren't necessarily in a hurry to have the number 1 pick for this upcoming draft.
risky business. I mean, even if you don't want to go quarterback, don't you want to have maybe they could have had the number 1 pick in the draft? What's the problem with that? Doesn't have to be a quarterback. I mean, I just
yeah, it's true. But what do you have? You have 4 teams at 3 and 13 now.
Travis Hunter. I bring Travis Hunter. That could make watching football in New York. It's cold. If the Patriots
hold serve at the number 1 pick, they'll probably get Travis Hunter because they're not going to give up on Drake May right off the bat.
No. Drake May is fine. They got their. I think they got their guy with Drake May.
So so they'll probably take Travis Hunter before the Giants do.
Before the Giants messed up and won last week,
that's how you know they're not.
Colts.
That tells me that they're not crazy about these quarterbacks, which could probably be a mistake.
Could be.
So, we'll see. But we're going to have
the Giants management has never made a mistake. OJ. We have no glaring examples of Giants not knowing what the hell they're doing.
Yeah,
it's never
between the Giants and the Jets. It's somber to be a New York fan right now. But I digress.
You could add up their wins times 2, and I think you got the Eagles wins.
Yeah, there you go.
So fun time to be a New York fan. OJ, before I let you, go ahead.
Now, I was going to say, as much as we micromanage the Eagles and everything, you could just look 100 miles at the turnpike and say you could be one of those franchises.
Yeah. Or they are right down the road to where the Commanders made their first playoff berth, I think, since 2011 the other day.
Yeah, so, the RG3 days. Correct.
2011. Think about the hairstyles you were wearing or whatever was going on.
Well, no, they did win the division in 2020.
That's correct. In the COVID year. That's right. That's right.
Jalen's rookie year. Because remember, they pulled him out of the game. And
when Doug did that. Yes.
Chase Young, who was still with the Commanders at that time, he even said to Jay after the game, he pretty much said that they were happy that they took him out because they believed Jalen was going to beat him. And then the Giants would have gotten the division at 6-10. Crazy as it sounds.
It was a bad year. OJ, before I let you go, we got a couple of fun facts. Pro Bowl related. This week, Zack Baun became the first Eagles off-ball linebacker to make the Pro Bowl since Trotter Sr. in 2005. That's just mind-blowing to me.
Oh, well, it's really not mind-blowing when you think about how the Eagles have devalued linebackers up until 2-3 years ago. So it's really not mind-boggling when you think about it. But, not the most ideal guy that you would think be a Pro Bowler because, in training camp, people were wondering why this guy was on the team.
Oh my
He
gosh, yeah.
wasn't going to be a special teamer. And I don't know if you caught the interview when he was after he was named to the Pro Bowl.
I
Zack
did.
Baun, as many players do, have a Pro Bowl incentive in his contract.
Yep.
And
He's like, I don't even know why I had that.
yeah, you just kind of, you just kind of laugh it off, kind of like one of those. I guess when you have a warranty on your car or
Yep.
you have a warranty on your refrigerator and you
Mm.
don't even thinking about using it. So maybe it's like one of those
I'll cash it. Yeah, I didn't
type
even
of
remember I
analogies.
had that.
Yeah, exactly. So, and he's going to be a very rich man whether he stays here or goes elsewhere, and well
It'll
deserved.
be interesting. It'll be
Um,
very interesting to see.
yeah. So there you go. And kudos to him because I mean he has made all the difference in the world. And when you talk about somebody who flies around the field for this Eagles team, that is Zack Baun.
I mean, he's just been on the money. And it's not just like he hit a hot streak, mid late to the season. I mean, it's just been excellent football from one end of the tape to the other.
Absolutely, mate. Just an outstanding year.
Yeah, it's just awesome. Awesome. I mean, yeah. Yeah, we'll see how that progresses. Of course, you could check the fans, first time listeners. I will make comments and have people like OJ and probably OJ. We will discuss that in the future. Another interesting factoid coming up this week: Lane Johnson has now made 6 Pro Bowls, tying Fletcher Cox and McNabb with 6, trailing only 5 players: Chuck Bednarik, who had 8. The infamous Jason Kelce, Jason Peters, Brian Dawkins, and Reggie White. So that's just amazing. Probably the best Eagles offensive lineman of my lifetime. And I know that that's saying a lot. But would you say the same?
Well, the one thing you just have to look at, what is the Eagles' record when Lane
Oof,
Johnson plays as opposed to when he doesn't play?
not
And
good.
that
Go
just
there.
tells you all. And
It's
then
not a good record, folks.
and you just you just talked about all his Pro Bowls, and we have to start to say, will this guy get to Canton? And he certainly has a great case right now, even if it's not first ballot. Um, he's been a cornerstone of that offensive line. He's the elder statesman now, of course, with Kelsey gone. And what you're probably going to see within the next 10 years or so, both Jason Kelsey 1 year and Lane Johnson another, voted to Canton. Because once you rack up those Pro Bowl honors, all pro honors, all those things, you start to look at Canton. So, and Eagles may have more guys going out there, but Lane Johnson, just everything. Um, you watch him move on a practice field, you watch him move in the locker room, everything. He takes the pressure off of so many guys,
Oh my
and he's
gosh.
also one of the great leaders for
Yes.
this team. And I think where Fletcher Cox and Jason Kelsey have left that void, I really believe that Lane Johnson has filled in that gap as a 34-year-old and still playing at obviously a Pro Bowl level.
Folks, I mean, it's incredible what Lane to what OJ was saying about taking the pressure off. He's, there used to be Revis Island where Darrelle Revis would just take it didn't matter who it was, he's going to take your number 1 receiver just out of the game. Yeah, he might get 1 or 2, and he might even get a red zone touchdown, but for the most part, he's getting absolutely nothing. You might as well, you are going to have to beat them another way. That's what Lane Johnson does at right tackle for the Eagles. It doesn't matter who's lining up. It could be Myles Garrett, Von Miller in his prime, Micah, whoever. He is just wearing these guys out, and just while you have the opportunity, soak it all in, because you don't get tackle or right tackle play like this very often.
You're absolutely right. And it's usually partial to the left tackles where that is the money position and a blind side to, of course, the right-handed quarterback. But, you just can't say enough things about Lane Johnson over his career now.
Well, I already dropped the last kind of double factoid here earlier, but I'll say it again. With a win over the Eagles on Sunday, counterintuitively, the Giants could fall to as low as 9th in the NFL draft, and the Cowboys, with the win over the Commanders, could fall all the way to the right in the middle of the draft at the number 16th pick after both of them had highly disappointing seasons, embarrassing. I mean, the Cowboys could potentially end 9-8. What could these folks end with? This is just ridiculous. They play the Commanders.
What are they? 8-8, 7-9,
7-9. They could end 8-9 after getting blown out ridiculously at home, like by 40 points. They end the season, on the upswing, and it just ends the Cowboys and rinse, repeat with Cowboys next year's our year. It's beautiful. Great job.
And then you got $60 million Dak Prescott coming back. Just real quick on the Cowboys, and I just truly believe, and as I've watched them, they're disaster of a year. Most of their fans will call it a disaster, but I just think at this point, in Jerry Jones's career and his life, that the Cowboys are just so popular. Come hell or high water, they sell out every game. I mean,
too big to fail.
People run in there, yeah. People run in there to just standing room only. The tickets are astronomical, but they fill that place all the time. And I really believe the Jones family is content on that. Because again, we talked about this before, Matt. The overall scheme, the overall business model of the NFL, you really don't have to go above and beyond to win, because the house wins in the NFL. You have 32 homes in the NFL, and they all win, whether they go 8-9, 3-14, or 14-3.
What's the difference between Jerry and Barnum and Bailey? I mean, what's the difference?
It's a much bigger tent.
A much bigger tent. Yes.
They're both showmen. But again, as long as the Cowboys are the center of attention, the center of discourse, Jerry Jones is all right with that. That's what I believe. And maybe the joke's on the fans, but again, he's really the poster child of the NFL business model. And their value just expands every single year. But what are you going to talk about? They're going to talk about the Cowboys. They're going to talk about Micah Parsons, who has his own podcast. You're going to talk, okay, whether Mike McCarthy's back, what's Jerry going to do? He's too old to still run a team, but what is he going to do? He's going to run a team, right? So
they bringing Mike back? I got to ask you, since you brought it up, they bringing Mike back?
They probably will, because he doesn't have a starting quarterback.
And the narrative would be inside that building that, hey, he got these guys playing at the end of the year.
Yeah, McCarthy probably saved his job, because they could be 3-13 like the Giants. So I knew they won more games than that and all, but they could have rolled over and died after Prescott went down. But then again, that's all a part of staying relevant just enough.
It's a disgrace. And I would say this if it was the Eagles too. I mean,
yeah,
it's not okay. The just constant mediocrity.
I had a conversation with a friend the other day, and he claimed to me that Jeffrey Lurie is not that interested in winning, and I disagree with that wholeheartedly.
How? They try. Yeah,
because I'm not just being just covering the team these past 3 years, and somewhat more after that. He's one of the few owners that actually wants to win. And I've talked to enough people in and around the Eagles, other people who have covered the team. I mean, he really does invest in what the Eagles do, and he wouldn't have gone all in for Saquon Barkley if he wasn't interested in winning. That would not have happened, because
that doesn't make sense.
With this NFL business model, we know that Eagles fans are going to go to the games no matter what. So anything you do above and beyond that is a bonus. But again, Jeffrey Lurie, he goes above and beyond to win. He wants to win. He wants at least another Super Bowl before he hands it over to his son.
Yeah, and to the talk about Lane Johnson potentially being a Hall of Famer, you put if he bookends this thing with a ring and two different basically franchises, eras of a franchise,
right?
You could put that gold jacket right up on him in New Orleans. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Again, you said 6 Pro Bowls. I mean, that's really good enough, and that's not even counting how many All Pros he may have had. Which I think he maybe have at least
All
one
Pro
or two.
First team. I think he has 2 first team.
Right. So, I mean, that's a Hall of Fame.
And he might get another one this year. Who the hell's taking him out at Panay? But
All Pro is a different animal because it's really restricted to the Associated Press writers, because that is their team. It is the NFL All Pro team, but it's voted on by the Associated Press beat writers, which they have at least one for every team in the NFL. So it's a different animal, but I wouldn't be surprised if he gets another one.
Wow. OJ, give us a quick score before we go. Give us a quick score prediction for the Giant starters versus Eagles backups.
I'd say 21-13 Eagles.
Still 13.
Tanner McKee throws a couple touchdown passes, maybe one to Calcaterra, maybe one to EJ Jenkins, and if Shipley plays, I think he gets a touchdown.
I'm calling interception for my man Avonte Maddox. One time.
And a couple of starters will still want to play. If you look at the injury report, you'll see which starters that they're going to, maybe give a quarter or two that's going to play. So one of those guys may, have an impact of the game before they take them out and everything.
Put them away.
And I just want to add a couple of things before we go. And this is according to my article as well. I say, the record that they want to chase, or not want to say not a record, but the person that they want to chase as far as the 2,000 yard club is Terrell Davis, because he is the only player to both run for 2,000 yards and win a Super Bowl in the same season. And that was Super Bowl 33. Right?
98?
So, 1998, right? When Denver won back-to-back.
Okay.
So that's what Saquon Barkley and the Eagles should be chasing and everything. And I want to also, shout out James Franklin and Marcus Freeman, Notre Dame, Penn State, and everything. And, oh, man, as a Philly native, I know all the Philly Catholic schools are going to go crazy because they're either a Penn State fan or a Notre Dame fan, because everybody who's played college football and the Catholic League, even all around the country, those were the 2 schools you wanted to go to, or you throw at Ohio State. But I mean, it's really a great milestone. And even though we're saying that in 2025, you look at how far college football has come.
Yes.
They didn't expect Marcus Freeman to do that well at Notre Dame.
Nope.
They had him in a blender when he lost to NIU, right?
Yep.
So, and then James Franklin, I mean, Penn State fans, they want to fire him every week. When they're behind in the first half to, let's say, think about anybody who's lower tier, they're losing
Iowa State or something like that.
what they're losing 14-10 to Rutgers, and you know everybody wants to fire James Franklin.
Like Mike Tomlin.
But I think
there's a theme.
You know, it'll be hard for me to root against any of these guys because I'm so happy for them. But if somehow Penn State pulls off Notre Dame and they're playing for the national title, they will never get James Franklin out of State College. But he's going to get a lifetime contract if he makes it to the national championship game.
Just make it there and doesn't even have to win it.
Yeah, and I think Penn State is content with Franklin and the job that he's done because, again, they're a brand. Both Notre Dame and Penn State is tremendous brands in college football. But to see both Franklin and Freeman possibly playing for the national championship, it's a beautiful thing. It guarantees that you're going to have a black coach and playing for the national championship. So there you go.
Progress. OJ, thank you so much for making time. It's always great to have you on. Listeners, if you've listened this long, of course you like this show. Please go and subscribe, share it with your friends. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Matt. And then once again, Happy New Year to you and your family.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Back goes McKee. He pumps. He is firing. Touchdown! A.J. Brown!
Yeah, this is a fantastic job. He knows that he's got the coverage stride for stride with A.J. Brown. He throws him that back shoulder, and just a beautiful adjustment from A.J. Brown, catching the ball over to Ron Bland for the touchdown.
And the first touchdown pass of Tanner McKee's NFL career. It won't be the last.